Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to tournament poker strategy. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Fezbuddy and Killingbird. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I am Killingbird. That guy over there is Ron Fezbuddy.
That's me.
He's not literally right over there, but I pointed towards New York. So.
I tricked you. I'm in Jersey today.
Darn it. I'm doing pretty good, man. How you been?
I'm good. I shipped the tournament Friday night. Woo!
Yes.
Can I get some applause?
Yes, but not. I'm going to use a different applause this time. It's going to be like three people just going.
Okay. So all right. So let me say it again. Can I get some applause?
Yeah, congrats, man. I know you were battling along there for a while, making some deep runs. It was nice to see, nice to open up a sweat thread and see a first place finish.
Yeah, actually, it was awesome. It was what I play poker for. I got to tell you, it's probably I'm probably in one of the better poker moods than I've ever been. So sorry for everyone in the downswing, but I was there. So
yeah.
So you're right now. You're like, I hate this guy because why is he so fucking happy?
We all take our turns, right?
Look, you know what? How often do you win, right? It's like, unless you're big dog, you don't win every day, every week. So you really got to enjoy it. And actually, this is interesting because we'll be talking to. It's a good segue into our topic, but the mental game, which we're going to be focusing on today, and we'll tell you more about who's on the show. But I did a lot of things right in this tournament. I think I fixed a lot of leaks, and there were specific situations where I knew I was playing better, and so I'm really excited about it, and just replaying a lot of that in my mind, and I'm going to try to take from it those things and continue to improve my game. The other thing about it is that this is the 30K on PokerStars, the 2750 tournament that starts at 8 p.m.
Yeah, great tournament.
It is a great tournament. I do pretty well in it usually. I was riding a decent sized stack for most of the time. I think I had 20, I was doing okay, and I think I had 30K at 600, 1200, so I was in pretty good shape. Could be looking for more chips there, and I got aces in versus queens against another stack basically the same size as me, so I was ready to double up, and he beat me, and it left me with 1,177 chips at 600, 1200.
Ugh.
And I was a massive chip leader within 10 minutes.
Nice.
I don't even remember what happened because I was playing I was like 8 tabling at the time. Yeah, and all of a sudden I look over and then I double up. All right, I got back to 10 big blinds after winning 2 or 3 hands. Then I doubled up again. Then I doubled up. Then I think I tripled up one time. And in 10 minutes, I had 140K at 600, 1200. Well,
wow.
At that point, we were at 800, 1600, but still.
Yeah.
It was just like tremendous to come back from that kind of down moment in the tournament, to come back and then it was actually pretty funny because I regained the chip lead, and I was the chip leader or top 2 or 3 from that point on. For the entire tournament up until about 13 people left. And with 13 people left, I got into a hand with a guy. I had about 250K. I don't remember what the blinds were at, but I had like 280K and he had like 150. And I flopped top pair with a straight draw, and I check raised them all in, and he tanked down to his last second, and then he showed me a slow roll with the made straight already. But you know what though? I didn't care, dude. I mean, actually I had some people railing me who were yelling at him, and he was being railed by a couple of regulars who were like, come on, whatever, it's a slow, whatever. But you know what? I just didn't care. I was laughing about it. It's come on. I mean, what, once again, getting back to the mental aspect of things, what good is it going to do to be pissed off? I still had 120K, 150K, I think. I still had 22 big blinds, whatever the blinds were at. I had 22 big blinds at the time, is all I remember. So I was still in that tournament, and I made it to the final table 8 of 9, and then I played pretty solid, aggressive, doubled up with queens, made myself 4 of 7, and then just went on and heads up. I was down 900K to 2.4K is when we started, and I pretty much figured this guy out pretty quickly and took it down. So, sorry,
Nice.
Smug, but
No,
I'm in
that's all right.
It's like we said, you got to enjoy these times. So it was a pretty fun time.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a little mental game talk as well, because I'm in the middle of. I don't even want to call it a downswing because there's not that much money. But I'm just in the middle of sort of a rough patch of bad beats, and it really all started with that Sunday million hand, or the Sunday 5 million hand. Sorry, where I got it all in with aces against ace 10 for a bunch of chips, really deep, and he made a flush and pretty much crippled me. And I feel like mentally I haven't even really fully recovered from that incident yet. So I'm excited to have some guys in to hopefully help me with that. So
well, that's a good segue into why don't you tell them who's on and what we're doing today.
Yeah, so today, as we've kind of prefaced, we're going to talk a little bit about the mental game, taking a little bit of break from standard poker strategy and talking about the mental aspect of the game. So we have Jamie Glazier, who, if you're a member of Tournament Poker Edge, you're probably familiar with some of the articles that he's posted on the site, and also a forum dedicated to mental game, and he's been active in posting in there. And essentially, he is a mental game coach, so he helps out poker players and other athletes in, basically getting their mind in the right shape to do the best they can in whatever the sport is that they're playing. So I think he is going to be a really interesting guy to talk to. He works with Joseph Hatcham as well as a number of online players, and I think he's going to have a lot to share with us. So
yeah, I've read his articles a couple times. They're really, really good. I'm excited to talk to him and find out, just dig more into the mental state and just understanding that side of things. Good information from him.
Yep, and then also we're going to have actually one of our members who on our site is known as P-aire, and
P-aire 146 I think on the site.
Yeah, yep, I think you're right. And he is actually a police officer, a detective, and is involved in a bunch of interesting things. But one of the most interesting is that he does hostage negotiations, and obviously, if you think poker is stressful, you can imagine what it's like being a police officer, or a detective, or a hostage negotiator. So I know I met him in Atlantic City, and then you met up with him more recently in Atlantic City, and you had this idea of bringing him on to talk about, what he has learned in his training as a police officer and how we can maybe apply that to poker. So
how do you deal with stress? How do you deal with tough situations? How do you deal with situations where you don't have all the information and you have to be adaptable? And obviously a person who is a hostage negotiator and a police officer / detective will have a lot more stake than a poker player. But I think the things that his training has, and we've talked to him a little bit about this, the things that he's taken from his training are definitely applicable to poker.
Yeah,
they're going to be interesting to talk to him about those things and just try to figure out how it maps back to what we do basically every day.
Yep. So I'm excited about it. So let's get to it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with Jamie Glazier here on the Tournament Poker Edge podcast.
Hey MTTers, this is Casey Big Dog Pocket Fives Jarzovic from TournamentPokerEdge.com. If you've been looking for a training site dedicated exclusively to tournament poker, then look no further. Tournament Poker Edge is only $23.95 per month with no initial sign-up fee, and we post a new training video every weekday. You'll also find poker-related articles, blogs, and very active strategy forums. We even offer you the ability to upload your own video for others to discuss. So head on over to TournamentPokerEdge.com and find out why it's quickly becoming the destination for tournament poker players looking to take their game to the next level. TournamentPokerEdge.com.
Welcome back to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Time to bring in our first guest of this episode. Want to welcome Jamie Glazier to the show. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Doing great.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Diego. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us today. We're really excited to bring this aspect of the game to the people who listen to the podcast. We do a lot of talk about strategy and the technicalities of playing poker, but God, so much of this game is being able to mentally put yourself in the right place and handle the flow of the game correctly. And so, with you being on our forums a lot and writing some articles for us, we just had such great response. We wanted to bring you on here. So thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. It's good to be a part of the site, and you guys not only have a great bunch of coaches that are part of the site, but the members have really been great so far since I've jumped on the forum. So it's a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Yeah, they love you. I have to say, they really love you. They were like so psyched when we announced that you were coming on, and the questions that they've brought up have been really interesting to read. So, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So for people who are not maybe a member or who haven't ventured into that section of the forum just yet, Jamie is a mental game coach and works primarily with poker players and golf players, although I don't want to make the assumption that that's all you do, so I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. But maybe you can go into a little bit of detail about what it is that you do, what you try to accomplish with your website, and then also specifically you work with World Series of Poker champion Joe Hashim, and I think a lot of our listeners would be interested to hear about your work with him.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, for me as a mental game coach, I've been working in the industry for about 8 or 9 years with mainstream athletes and specifically elite and professional golfers. And I suppose my role is to help my clients understand firstly how the brain functions, so how they can actually put themselves mentally in their best state, or what I call their peak performance state. Everyone has a state that they get into occasionally. Unfortunately, most of the time it's by accident or unconsciously, that they just perform really well in. Now, what we want to try and do is decipher what's happening during that peak performance state, so we can actually recreate that state every day pretty much. Then what we want to try and do is, because most sports and poker as well, I would perceive poker to be probably the most emotional game there is, that we may start a session in that state, but there are going to be a lot of things that happen that are going to drag us out of that state pretty quickly, and sometimes a long way from that state. So we want to create triggers and exercises to stop that process, but also get that player back in that state when something extreme, pops up throughout a session. So, then there's a lot of other things that are about helping that player, perform at their best, whether it's goal setting, motivation issues, obviously emotional control, eliminating tilt, but, both positive and negative tilt, improving the quality of someone's focus, and also improving the length of time they can hold a good level of focus for throughout a session. So, from a mental game coach point of view, there's a lot of things that we work on, and looking forward to. I know the mental games are only starting to become a little bit more of a point of focus in poker over the last probably 6 to 9 months, and really looking forward to exploring this with a lot more players over the next few years. It's a really interesting job to have, if I can call it a job. It's more of a passion. So it's really interesting. And
like I mentioned, you have done some work with Joe Hashim, and he's fresh off a really nice run down at the what was to be an NAPT event in Los Angeles, but I know he finished second in that event. So sounds like maybe something you're doing with him is working.
Well, yeah. Look, it's an interesting situation with Joe. I've been working with Joe for about 2 years, and with what I would call we both would call minor results. Both, result-wise in poker, but also result-wise with the stuff that we were working on. And, I was in Cebu with Joe in November, and at the APPT, and we were sort of having a chat, and, I said to him, look, to be honest, I said, I feel like we haven't actually got off step one first. We've been working together for about 18 months, but I felt like we're still working on building the foundations of the same things we worked on when we first started working together. We haven't been able to progress because his life's so busy and he's got so much stuff on. He found it really difficult to be able to commit to these things, these exercises or routines that I created, to make them unconscious. And And, so he said, you know what, you're right. He said, I don't really do much of what you've said off the tables. He said, I try and do it on the tables, but when I explained to him that what happens on the tables is a direct reflection of how much work you've put in off the tables. He really understood that, and he said, okay, he said, we came back in December after the APPT Grand Final here in Sydney, and we're sitting down having a coffee, and I said, look, I said, for me as a coach, it's time now that I have to say to you, it's either, okay, let's do this properly, or we really shouldn't be doing it at all, because I'm a coach that, as I said before, I have a real passion for it. It's not just about, paying the bills for me. It's a real passion that I want to work with clients that are committed and passionate about the improvement of their game on and off the felt. And so I said to him, look, you just need to make a decision, mate, that either you can commit to moving forward and really working on these things together, or if you don't have time to be able to school, then let's not sort of bark up that tree. And he was like really excited. He said, yep, let's do it. So we created a pre-game and a post-game routine for him to really go through every single day throughout the Aussie Millions, and he did it really well and saw some great results on the table. Not so much, how deep he ran in tournaments or making final tables, but just from a process point of view, he was really, really doing well, and we were really happy with where he was heading. And I said to him before this last trip to the States, just keep working on that, mate. I said, I know that good results just around the corner. And then the first, the WPT, he played a couple of weeks ago. He went deep and finished about 30th. And then, obviously in the big event, played great for 5 days and 6 days and finished second. So, I really believe, I said to Joe the other night that, if you keep committing to this, you're putting yourself in a position to play your very best poker, which is what you were doing pre-2005, 2005, and then 2006, before life got so hectic that it took you out of some of those peak performance states that you're in. If you can really commit to these, consistently this year, and I said to him, I'll make sure, my job is to make sure he commits to them. So, really push him and focus and just keep in contact with him, and, who knows what he's capable of, because when he's playing his best, he's an amazing tournament player.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that, you talk about when he's playing his best, he's an amazing poker player. How much does the mental state, do you think, affect someone's performance? And I know you're probably going to say a lot, but just like how does it affect your state? What kind of decisions how can you make better decisions? Where does a good mental state put you? How do you benefit from a good mental state when, a lot of people who play poker have practiced the technicalities? I mean, a guy like Joe has played tons of hands in his life. So if he's not in the right mind state, what kind of mistakes is he making? And not just Joe specifically, but I guess everyone, but he's the example everyone knows. What's the benefit of a positive state?
I'm going to say, for the benefit of not sounding like a complete douchebag, I'm going to say that I feel the mental game in poker is approximately 80% of the game. Now, because I don't want to sound like a douchebag, I'll say 80 instead of 100. But because what I perceive is strategic learning and learning the game is actually a mental component anyway. So what a lot of these great teachers do is they teach players the strategic aspect of poker, which is, it doesn't matter how good you are mentally, if you don't have that strategic foundation, I can't help you. Right. Okay, so the strategic is extremely important. Now, for the elite player, or for the player that is elite in their game, whether that's 25 NL or $2 sit and goes or whatever it is, if they're a winning player in their game, then the mental game becomes extremely important. And some of the mistakes that players make range from impatience, range from lack of focus. There are so many. For example, with some of the players, I work with an MTT player called Brendan Ruby, who you may know of. He's won an F-Tops and a mini F-Tops jersey, and he's considered to be one of the best MTT players in the world. One point I made with him when I was working with him was that, most guys, the grind, the Sunday majors, they'll have 6, 8, 10 windows up at any point in time playing. Now, what I said to him was that if you've got too many windows up, you're not going to be able to get all the information. So it's like a builder quoting on a job, but the builder doesn't have the exact price of how much the bricks are going to cost them. So they're going to make a guesstimate. Now, whether they come out at the end with a profit or a loss is luck, because they haven't really done specifically the exact numbers on giving that person the quote. Now, a hand of poker is exactly the same. Pre-flop, whether it's live or online, obviously online there are timing tells and betting tells, but have you been focused pre-flop on that hand so that you know the information before the flop, then on the flop, then on the turn, then on the river, and then at the hand after the river? Have you been able to get all the pieces of information and make a successful quote where you are a high percentage, 80%, 90% feel like you have the right information to make this call, put your opponent on an exact range of hands? Now, that's all good and well if you're playing one window. Now, this is where, improving someone's focus comes into it. If they've got 4 windows up, they need to have a really high quality of focus, even for 4 windows, because, that's how much focus is needed to make a high quality play in every single hand that you do play. So, I perceive, from a mental game point of view, that focus is one thing, emotional control, because emotional control, when people tilt or get impatient, those emotions actually cloud your ability to stay focused on the present.
Right.
So there's the mental game. It's like a spider web. It's there's so many different elements of it that interact with one another, that if you work on one aspect but have a weakness in another, it's really get in the way of that one aspect actually performing under pressure. Okay, and this is where I find a lot of people, they run deep in tournaments. They get to the final few tables, but then they don't play the same way. That's under pressure. If you don't play the same way, then the mental game is your biggest weakness.
One of the things that in your game set reset article that you wrote up and posted on the site, which great feedback on it, and I think it ties directly into what you're talking about right now, is being able to, on a dime, reset your mental state to the right frame of mind to gather all that information and make the right decisions. And you talk about a concept of finding the happy place, and you give some suggestions on how to mentally reset yourself and how to and potential happy places that a person can go to, and you even call it creating a reset button. Could you talk about that, because I think that is an interesting way to combat tilt. And as I read it, I felt that I could just see myself cooling down from a negative situation, and how I could take myself away from that by using this technique. So could you talk a little bit about that and explain that, because I think that's an interesting and useful technique.
Yeah, for sure. It's the reset technique is something that I sort of created to help players understand what happens when they tilt. It's not the actual event, because I could honestly, when I ask players this question, okay, when was the last time in a hand of poker something unbelievably surprised you? Like when it happened, you were like, oh my God, I've never seen that in my whole life. Now, they probably say, well, not for many years, but they still let these events sort of, how they react to them is like that's the first time it's ever happened. So what I explain to them is it's like tilting, losing emotional control over a hand is the further you hold on to that event, the harder it is for you to come back and come back from tilt. So it's like walking down a road. That the further you walk down a road, the longer it's going to take you to come back. So the reset button is basically walk down a road, stop as soon as you can, create a trigger that's going to distract your mind to go to your happy place, and then basically what will happen is you'll walk back down that road and you won't be there any longer. So it's basically a distraction technique. It's distracting the conscious mind from thinking about that bad beat or that bad situation, because as soon as the mind thinks about that situation for too long, the brain will release chemicals into the bloodstream and make you feel a certain way. So make you feel angry, frustrated, impatient, whatever that situation calls for. So we want to create a reset button where as soon as that event happens, with practice, the quicker you can do it, the better. You press that reset button, and then you'll get back into your peak performance state. So the reset button is even a word. So my clients and I create a word that really means a lot to them, and we may have to create multiple ones for a bad beat, or for being card dead, or for whatever it may be. And when that event pops up, they say that word. That word is actually on a post-it note at the bottom of their screen. They say that word, and then that word may have a couple of images to it. So, for example, a reset might be let it go. So they get a bad beat, let it go. So let it go, and then, for example, that may take them to, it's only a hand of poker. There's been massive devastation in Japan at the moment, so this isn't that big a deal in the scheme of things. So they're able to put it in perspective, let it go, and then stay focused on what it is. So depending upon the person and their personality, we create a reset button and then a couple of images that they can associate to that to help reverse that pattern in the brain. Because we're such visual creatures, those images are really important for them to actually go back to sort of start to visualize those images in their head, because that will have a quicker reverse effect on the brain, releasing those negative chemicals into the bloodstream.
So it's almost like I've always heard if you can try to fake a smile, you'll actually start to feel better, because I guess it tricks your mind, and the muscle memory starts to make, I don't know, is that true? It makes you feel a little better just by forcing yourself to smile will change your mental state. Is it something like that, where you're tricking your body into starting a biological process that is more beneficial? Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it's similar. Like with that smile you're talking about, that's what we call an anchor. When we anchor we can anchor any state that we want to by a physical cue. Now, a smile is a physical cue that when we do that, it anchors the brain to go back to in times past when I've smiled. Where has that been? What memory can I recall from smiling? And obviously for a lot of people, it's a happy time. So the brain will unconsciously go back to that and then put us unconsciously in sort of more of a happy state. And all this stuff just happens automatically. Now, a lot of my teachings are, because this stuff is so complex and can be very complicated, I try and simplify it all and make it so that everyone can understand it, give them simple exercises that will actually do a lot of that work underneath the surface without them having to actually consciously think about it, because it can be pretty complex stuff. But that's the smiling part of things is like an anchor. What these other the reset button is it's actually really building more of a strength from a mind control perspective. It's controlling your mind, not letting an external event have control over where your mind goes. It's you're going to stop your mind from going there, control it, and then, no, I want my mind to head over in this direction. So it's more controlling the path that your mind goes throughout a poker session, which is such a challenging aspect. To me, it's the most important aspect, but it's also the most difficult aspect in the game of poker, controlling what your mind is doing.
I really liked in some of the reset buttons that you could create. You talked about maybe your best result or a really great performance that you put on. I thought that was great, because I can see being in a situation where you take a couple bad beats and things aren't going your way. And I've done this before myself. Just this technique where you just start thinking, okay, listen, I've done this in the past. Even if you forget about a beat, let's just say you make a mistake. You say, listen, I've done this in the past. I've had success. I've won something, or I played. Let me go back to this hand where I played fantastic against this tough opponent, and it really does start to change your mental state and make you feel a little bit better and get you out of that negative emotion. I really think that's an interesting suggestion there. My question is, how many of your your clients that their reset button is their kid. What percentage did you say is their kid's name is their reset button?
Oh wow, yeah, they're quite a lot. I mean, and a lot of it is external. You know, one thing we know that we've worked on is and he actually spoke about it in an interview we had with I think it was Southwest Poker News just before his second place at the big event. He had an interview and you know, his pre-game routine, what we specifically created in his pre-game routine is also aspects of his reset button, so that he starts a session with a pre-game routine with these things anchored and this state there. But his reset button is of similar things, so that it's easy to connect to. And I suppose Joe, the last few years, he's had a little bit of a people have sort of thought that Joe's bad luck. He's Mr. Bad Luck. He's always unlucky. Whenever he's discussed stuff in the media, he's been so unlucky and this, that, and we all know anyone that wins a main event of the World Series is never unlucky. So he a couple of his reset buttons were that he's extremely blessed in his life with his current situation. He's got an amazing wife that he's been married to and been with forever. He's got four beautiful kids, 3 boys and Justine, like 4 beautiful kids that he adores and they adore him. And those things for him are powerful enough that he will get rid of any negative state in a heartbeat when he's at a poker table, because at the end of the day, poker, is not more important than any of those things. And, the great thing about this last trip to the States, Joe went by himself. He's away for sort of 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, which is a long time for him to be away from his family, because he's such a hands-on parent and husband. But in all the interviews that I watched of Joe and the photographs at the table, it looked like he was having so much fun.
That's great.
And that's such a key ingredient that we've been working on, and it's great that helped enable him have a really good result. So, but yeah, definitely.
I guess he has the biggest reset button on the planet for poker, right? Going back to winning the main event would be the biggest reset button you could possibly have, I think.
I mean, and the other thing too is, and Derek mentioned before, like reset is when you're at a tournament. I get players to, okay, let's say for example they're 3 times average in a tournament, and they're on a table. There's another pretty big stack there. They get involved in a hand, then bang, loses most of your stack, and now you're just under average. Now, this is when it's really important to control your mind, because
this happens to me all the time, Jamie. I find this really interesting, because I definitely struggle with this. So, and I'm sure a lot of I've actually talked to a lot of people, and they just can't handle it when they've had a big stack and they're back to average. I find it just makes me feel a little defeated, and I know that's wrong, and I try to reset myself, but you get stuck in the what could have been. I was in this great spot just a minute ago. So whatever. Yeah. What's the advice there? What do you do when you're in that situation?
Well, when you lose a hand like that, the what could have been is still a possibility.
Right. Like,
this is the thing that a lot of people, that we don't have enough strength of mind or control over our mind, because we've got it's all about staying in the present. So what happens is, when we've got a big stack, we all of a sudden our mind wanders to, okay, we're on the final table, and how much pays for first, and geez, what could I do with that money? And all of a sudden, the new car's already in the garage. Right. That's, what we're going to do is control the mind to stay in the present. So reset is, okay, you've basically, you've got 3 times average chips, you're in the top 5 in chips, bang, all of a sudden you're just under average. Reset, okay, what's my chip stack? I've got 35,000 in chips. What's average? Average is 42,000. Okay, cool. 35, 42. How many players are left? Bang, this amount of players are left. Okay, this is my situation in the tournament. Have I ever made a final table or won a tournament from this position?
Yeah.
Now,
good point.
If most players have played enough volume, they've probably won a tournament or final tabled with maybe 5 BBs in a tournament. So being just under average is no big deal. So what we've got to try and do is to go from a mental state of devastation and what you would perceive as loss, oh my God, what could have been, we need to click that around to being inspired to continue to shoot for that same goal, which is, okay, I'm just below average. Have I ever won a tournament or final table from this position? And you'll go, of course I have. And then you go, bang, okay, let's do it. And then you're back focused on the present.
Jamie, it's funny you mentioned that because we talked about this before you came on. I won a tournament Friday night where I had 1,177 chips at the 1,200 big blind level. So I came back from less than one big blind. I mean, just exactly what you said. I came back from less than one big blind to completely win a tournament. And I came back from less than one big blind. Within 10 minutes, I was the chip leader. So it's absolutely, completely possible to come back. And if you're just being at average, I would have loved to been at average. I lost aces to queens, right? So I mean, that's how you usually end up in those states, right? I lost aces to queens and was under one big blind. And I mean, for me, it wasn't necessarily that I did what you just said. I will in the future. Remember that. I just have so many other tournaments going on. I didn't focus on it. I guess it's kind of to your point. I was playing other tournaments, so I just moved on. I went to the next tournament, and I didn't let it affect me. It was early enough in the tournament where I didn't feel like I was really deep yet. So, good example because that's exactly what happened just to me. Really interesting point.
Yeah, and what a lot of players don't really do is they don't acknowledge that situation to a high enough level so that when they're in that situation in future, that actually situation comes to the forefront of their mind. Right. Okay, so they I mean, this is all to do with human nature as well, just acknowledging the negatives and not really acknowledging or amplifying the positives. So when you're in that situation in the future, what's going to happen is you're going to probably be controlled more by the emotions and get down yourself and, blah, 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 poor me, instead of your brain going, hang on a second, you've won a tournament from less than 1 BB, so come on, I know that's probably, not that possible, but let's at least give it a shake while we're here.
Right.
And, so it's really amplifying and acknowledging the good quality play that you've done or some good quality processes or mental states that you've actually been able to get yourself into so that they're at the forefront of your mind in future so you can recall them a lot easier.
Right. That actually brings me to another question I had from one of your other articles on the site. You wrote an article called "Are You Taking Out the Trash?" And what I really got from that article was your concept of sort of that positive recycle bin and the negative recycle bin. And focusing on what you did well in the past, as opposed to focusing on what you've done poorly. Even in one specific hand, what did you do well as opposed to what you did poorly in that hand? Could you talk about that concept? Because I found that concept has really helped me out a lot, and I think the listeners would benefit from it. Yeah,
look, it's something that I sort of really, I suppose I created this. I mean, how I got into the game of poker was Jackie and I started playing maybe 4 years ago, just a home game with friends, and then we went into the casino and put real money down on the table and playing for a little while. And Jackie being a woman, possibly she had, although she's a very emotional person, she had more control of that at the table and didn't personalize things. And I'm from a tennis background where I'm sort of competing against that person. So, there were times where I would make it personal, but the biggest thing that I got out of playing, live cash with real money the first probably 5 or 6 times was how bad I would leave that session or how bad I would feel when I was leaving that session when I wasn't doing anything wrong. And the concept grasped on me, like, this game makes you feel so bad when you've played absolutely perfectly, like no other game in the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there are so many external factors depending that have an impact on whether you win or lose a hand or whether you win or lose a session or whatever. So I'm like, okay, this cannot be happening. This has to be one of my main point of focuses with clients is I need you to focus on what you're in control of, your decisions, and what positions you get yourself into, and then let the result go because that's all you can do. If you let things that are outside your control impact you negatively in poker, then it's going to get the better of you, and you're going to be an emotionally unstable, depressed individual, whether you have lots of money or no money. And to me, that's ridiculous.
I mean, what you said. I mean, what you said is interesting because I kind of see it's like this. It's in terms of your performance, it's good, bad. But then we focus on that bad, and we forget, we don't process and sort of mentally capture the things that we were doing good. Where if we replay the stuff that's good in our mind, we can replicate that more often in the future and learn from it, and it becomes part of our instinct. Is what I think from that concept that you brought up. I think it's really an astute point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's from a mind's perspective, like how the mind works is the mind sort of stores images and memories of what we've done and or what has happened to us, and it's like a filing cabinet, and all the files that are stored at the very front are the events or the situations we have emotionalized the most. Now, in poker, and just in life in general as well, but in a lot of games and a lot of sports, most players will emotionalize the negative things. Okay, so we have a lot of negative images stored at the very forefront of our subconscious, and they're the ones that are the easiest to recall. So what we do for different routines and sort of exercises of players to reverse that pattern. So if they manage to, because poker is the only game. I won't say the only game, but definitely the only game that I would know of or have competed in, whereby you can lose to someone that has made a horrible play.
That's a good point, right?
Like my wife, this year's Aussie Millions main event, so $10,500 buy-in. Day one, she's on Joe's table, Joe Hashman and Chris Ferguson. And herself and a couple of other good players. Mel Judah was there, so it was a really good table. And she loves that opportunity. So she's, 3-bet, 4-betting the guys and really playing. She's quite an aggressive player, but playing really well and built a stack up to about, what was this? I think it was 30K starting stack. She had about 42. This is early on, maybe in the first stage of the second level, something. And there's this one guy there that just wanted to be involved in every hand, and Jackie was just annihilating him. Anyway, he built his stack up to about 32 when he ran his, ace-4 all-in pre against ace-king and spiked the 4 and got the guys, doubled up off this guy. So, Jackie's got aces. This guy raises in early position. Joe flats. Jackie pops it up on the button. So, perfect timing, on the button. Looks like a position raise. So, she 3-bets. He 4-bet jams for something like, Jack had 42, he had 30, about 30, so maybe about 31. He 4-bet jams for 31 in the second blind level of the day. just because he was getting so frustrated. So Joe folds, Jackie's got aces, so she calls, he's got Jack 4 off, and obviously hits a full house. But this is this game is so brutal in regards to players can play so badly yet win, and we at the end of the day we really shouldn't let that affect how we store that particular session, because Jack played amazing poker on a really tough table with some of the world's best players, was not intimidated by them, was actually controlling the table, yet one douchebag played a hand really badly because he just had enough of Jackie's good play and then got super lucky. So we shouldn't let her walk away and go, oh my God, because she doesn't deserve that. So after the initial half an hour, 45 minutes steam off, which a couple of years ago used to be maybe 3 days.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's okay for her. It's okay for her to initially spend some time moping, though, right? I mean, it's got to be, because I can't imagine anyone in this world who busts out and doesn't have some sort of just anger in that kind of spot or regret. I guess it's a matter of just recovering quickly and then remembering what you did well, right? Remembering it and taking that to the next session, right?
Absolutely, and it's a post game routine that I've built, and I'll allow players, like, if my players don't vent, I'm gonna question them. Why are you not angry? Did you want to win this tournament, or it didn't mean that much to you? So yeah, venting is a really important part of the process. Now, what we want to do for a tournament player, and especially online players, or live players that are good winning cash game players, is be able to get them to recover as quick as possible, so that they can let's say they're at a live series and there's really juicy cash games going on, but they've just busted out of the tournament. If they take 4 or 5 hours or a day to get over it, then they're losing profits by not being on the table if that's what they plan to do while being there.
Right.
So what we want them to recover quickly, both, so they can either get on a cash table and play cash or register for another tournament, or just from a not poker perspective and just enjoy your night out with friends having dinner and not be in such a bad state of mind. So, the recovery process is important, and this post-game routine that I've created is about a 10 to 15 minute routine that helps reverse that trend that we spoke about before of planting a negative seed in the mind of what just happened, and not really acknowledging all the positive aspects that may have occurred in that session, because you could play great perfect poker for 6 hours and maybe done 20 to 30 really, really great things while there, and then bust out in a really unfortunate way. And those 20 or 30 things have been thrown down the toilet and to never be recalled again. So this post-game routine gets them to go over those things, acknowledge those things, and a few things that you would like to improve tomorrow, so that if there were certain leaks that popped up, focus on what you would like to do differently tomorrow with those leaks, and then that puts the mind in a state of being more motivated and inspired to come back tomorrow and play great again, instead of, getting to that self-pity state or poor me that the game can sort of, create in you.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because if I, go through a session and don't cash, or, bust out somewhere, where it's not close enough to a final table, if I could pick out a couple of hands that I thought I played well and focus on those, the next day I'm ready to play because I'm excited. I feel like I'm progressing. I feel like I'm improving. And I find that I play the next day better because I have more confidence and I am practicing the positive elements, the things that I'm doing well, and I'm getting better at those and making them happen more often. So it's a pretty neat concept and something to definitely go back to. Appreciate that perspective.
No problem. Yeah, it's a really important thing, and I got a lot of that from my work with golfers on the pre-shot routine and post-shot routine, and I just created a similar sort of thing for poker, and it's been the most powerful thing. The pre-game routine and the post-game routine for players has been the most positive EV thing that they've done in their game, I would say, ever, because it allows them to put themselves in a place of being able to put all the strategy that they've learned through the years and all their knowledge on how to play poker. It's actually something that helps them be able to make those decisions on a higher percentage of hands all day, every day. So that's going to end up, helping them win a lot more money.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Jamie, if we could, we have a few questions that members actually sent in to ask you, so we'd love to run some of those by you before we let you go.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. So one of our members, Hawkeye K9, actually kind of brought up an interesting point, which is that MTT players, which obviously is what our site focuses on, kind of face a very different challenge than maybe cash game players, because if we have a bad beat or something goes wrong or we play a hand poorly, we can't really just get up and walk away and say, I'm going to go have some dinner and then I'll come back and play later. Because you still might have 8 tournaments going, or you still might have a stack. Like you said, you might have had 3 times and now you got average, but you still got to keep playing. So are there things that you can do, before your session even starts to sort of prepare for what could be a 10-hour long session? Because I think a lot of times we think of sort of the mental game as, well, how do I recover from something bad having happened? But are there things you can do before you even start that will prepare you for that long grind?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that pre-game routine that we spoke about is a really it's a very sort of individual and specific to each player, because each player has their own, I suppose, negative behaviours occur or situations that happen in a session that they don't handle too well. So we sort of create that pre-game routine as a bit of a security blanket for when those things, and a lot of players go into a session maybe with a bit of a, I don't know, maybe their eyes closed in regards to these things are not going to happen in this session, but these things happen in every single session that you play. Okay, so you've got to have. So we pick out the 3 things, the 3 most common things that will happen to a player in a session that have the biggest negative impact on them. So then you basically go through a pre-game routine that is revolved around you being able to handle. Creating that reset button for those situations would be a perfect thing for Canine to do, but also how you would like to react to those situations. So if this situation occurred, how would you like to react as soon as that situation comes up? What would be your optimal behavior when that occurs? And then we get them to go through some visualization techniques, days or weeks before, and then get them put into practice. Now, everyone out there has got to understand that when you work on these things, and then the very next time it happens, it probably is, it's not going to be perfect, and it's going to be far from perfect, but it's about practicing these traits. It's about strengthening your ability to control these situations. And that's the one thing that I say to a lot of clients is, I'm going to give you a sort of a 4 to 6 week window, and that 4 to 6 weeks is when you can expect these things to happen automatically and actually happen in a positive way. Before then, they're not built. The foundations aren't built strong enough to withstand some of the things that happen in a poker session. So the other the Canine can, the focus exercise. One of the chapters on my video program is I get players to go through a focus exercise, which it's sort of a 2-in-1 type of exercise where it helps improve the quality of their focus, but also the longevity of their focus, and also helps train their brain to be able to let things go. So just when something happens, just let it float by and don't let the brain attach to it, which means attach to it means thinking about it. So let it float by and stay in the present. And that would also be something that I get a lot of my players to do before their sessions, to be able to clear their mind so that they have that ability to just let things go. So there's definitely a couple of things there that the Canine can do to help improve his quality over a long session for sure.
Cool. One of the other things that you had talked about, I think, in one of the forum threads, was the idea of sort of turning your focus off between hands to help maintain your focus for a long session.
Yep.
And Benny Maka, who's one of our members, had asked, how do you balance that process with possibly missing important information that could be happening in between hands?
Yeah, and I think I replied to Benny, more think of it as turning the volume down as opposed to switching off completely. So turning the volume down, basically whenever you fold your cards and you're not in the hand, you just lower your intensity of what's going on. You're still watching, but you're not super intense in regards to analysing the situation, what's going on. You're more just sitting back and looking, because when you look as opposed to analyse, you actually see a lot more things. Your instincts pop up a lot more, and that right side of your mind actually takes over, where you're just looking, you're like, wow, I just saw something there. What was that? That was different, whether it was a bet size or a timing tell or something. And obviously live, this is a lot more important live. But turning your volume down when you're not in a hand actually is going to allow you to have a higher level of focus or battery life, as we can call it, for later on in the day or later on in your sessions. So I find a lot of people when they come to me and they go, oh, you know what, late in sessions and when I go deep in tournaments, I just have what I call brain farts, where you just have brain explosions and make some big mistakes. What I say to them is, first thing that most likely it is it's your focus energy and your battery life has just run dead low. There's no energy or battery left in your brain to hold focus for that period of time. So, we create that turning down the volume to maintain some of their focus energy. Also introducing an exercise that I call resetting physiology to help reactivate the brain again. Because when our physiology is stagnant and sitting in the same spot for a long period of time, our brain also slows down. Okay, so what we get them to do is, on their 1 minute breaks or in between, just do some form of short, sharp physical exercise for 10 seconds that actually is going to reactivate your physiology, which will start to activate your mind. And players feel and see a difference straight away. Their mind just, they're more alert, they're more focused, so that's something that we've introduced as well, and that helps keep the brain alive, so to speak, for for the latter parts of people's sessions.
Yeah, I've actually found that really helps. I've mentioned that to a few people, and some of them have laughed at me. But you get the glory of synchronized breaks online is that you get 5 minutes of free time, and obviously you got to grab a drink or use the bathroom or whatever. But I almost exercise on every single break, whether it's a quick 30 jumping jacks or a couple of crunches or whatever, just something to sort of get moving a little bit and get the blood flowing again.
Yeah.
Because I'm never as exhausted mentally as I am at the end of a 10 or 12 hour long session.
Wait, so you mean I shouldn't go get potato chips on the 5-minute break?
No, you definitely should, but just run to get them and then run back.
Jamie, how do I stop eating potato chips?
If you're gonna get potato chips, do cartwheels on the way back. Run there, do cartwheels on the way back. So hopefully you'll hit your head on something, and you'll forget about what you went to the cupboard for, and you won't eat the potato chips.
Probably need to do we probably need to do an episode on physical skill, physical aptitude for tournament players, right? At some point, the different set of challenges, but
right.
I like the exercise idea during breaks. Good idea.
Yeah, it's a big challenge in the poker world, but no, it's important.
Excellent. Well, Jamie, I want to give you a chance to plug your website, let people know where they can find out more information about the services that you offer. So.
Yeah, okay, great. It's the website's daretodream.com.au. So dare to dream is with the number 2 .com.au, and we have it's free for people to join and access the forums, the discussion topics, access article content, and those sort of things. And then there's we give the TPE members a promo code, which is the promo code is D2D TPE. That they can use when signing up to get a $50 discount. I think the site's like $295, and then they get it for $245 with a $50 discount. That's for 12-month access to the 13-chapter video program. But we'll also be adding different little videos here and there from now on that I've done, whether it's through video blogs from different sites or just a couple of little short, sharp video tips that I'll be adding this year. So hopefully by the end of the year there may be close to 30 separate videos that for members to watch. But and that way then, because there might not be a lot of people out there that can pay the hundreds of dollars per hour for a one-on-one session with myself, but they can go there, look at the 13 videos that it's a specific mental game program. Then they can jump on the forum and ask me a question, and they can actually personalize that program like they are having one-on-one coaching for a zillionth of the cost. So
right. Well, I think it's really interesting content and definitely worth the price. Obviously, we are a training site and we sell a service, but I always tell people, an annual subscription to our site can be paid for by winning one $4 180-man tournament on PokerStars. So, if signing up for your site allows them to win one more $4 tournament, then the results have paid for themselves, in one single tournament. So.
And I can tell you that our members are just really loving the stuff that you're bringing to our site. So the content is really good. Great feedback so far.
That's great. It's great to hear. And with my work in the golf world and working closely with technical coaches, it's no different with poker. I say to my players, the mental game, we can really see the improvements and take advantage of the work that we've done on your mental game, only providing your strategic knowledge is up to scratch for the competition you're playing. Now, that doesn't need to be that advanced at a $2, $3, $4 sit and go. But as you build your role and you move up limits, then your knowledge of the game needs to improve as well. So, the strategic and mental game sort of coaching is very closely linked, and it's great that sites like yours have come on board and help provide some of the other missing links, so to speak, to the members. And let's hope at this year's World Series we see a few TPE members on final tables and doing some great things. So
cool.
Great.
So cool. Yep, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you out in Vegas at the World Series. Maybe we'll grab some dinner or something someday.
Yeah, I'll be there, and I know you guys have. I think you've got a live coaching program or seminar that you're trying to get up.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah,
we're doing that on June the 10th, so people can find information about that on the website.
Yeah, well, I've put that down in my diary. I'm going to try and see if I can keep that free and come on top of my head and say good day to you guys if I can. So hopefully we'll catch up with everyone there.
That would be great.
Awesome, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for spending this time with us. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Good to chat to you.
All right, we will be right back here on the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Hey, this is Killingbird from TournamentPokerEdge.com, here to tell you about our exclusive rakeback program. Tournament Poker Edge offers up to 40% rakeback on sites such as Full Tilt Poker, Absolute Poker, Ultimate Bet, and Cake Poker. If you're playing online and not getting rakeback, you are just giving money away. So visit rakeback.tournamentpokeredge.com and sign up for the Tournament Poker Edge rakeback program and start getting paid to play today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Special thanks to Jamie Glazier for stopping in today to talk a little bit about the mental game. And now, as promised, we want to bring in TPE member P-aire. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, P-aire. Thanks for joining us, man.
Not a problem.
Cool. So, Derek, I wanted to talk to P-aire. We met P-aire. I think you met him previously, but I met him for the first time at the World Series of Poker circuit event at at Caesars 2 weeks ago, when a bunch of us from TPE went down for event one, and it was a pretty fun time. And during one of the breaks, we were just chatting. What's your day job? What do you do? And he told me he's a hostage negotiator. And so I knew we were putting together this podcast on the mental game and featuring Jamie, but I thought there might be something interesting there in P-aire's training, and how he applies maybe some of his training to the poker game, because I'm assuming, and we'll get to the questions in just a second, I'm assuming that there's quite a bit of training around dealing with stress, dealing with stressful situations, reading people, understanding what they're saying and what potentially their motivations are. And so we thought that it'd be fun to bring P-aire on to talk about that and how it applies to poker. So P-aire, thank you for joining and being willing to talk a little bit about that with us.
Not a problem, guys.
Cool. So would you mind, before we jump into this poker-specific stuff, how about a little bit of background, just so everyone who's listening knows a little bit about you and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? Just I think it's fascinating for a lot of people, just even beyond poker.
Right. I've been a police officer for going on 15 years now. Just like everybody, I went to the police academy in 96, and, for my first few years, I was in the patrol division, just normal patrol stuff, driving around, answering calls, stopping cars, different reasons, stuff like that. For the last 5, I've been assigned as a detective and have had just various jobs. I was a narcotics officer for 3 years, and during those years, we also did street crimes, basically like gangs, and the whole 5 years I've been in the detective division, I handle a wide variety of like major crimes. Anything from as little as like some forms of simple assaults, aggravated assaults, to sexual assaults, to obviously homicides, frauds, and thefts of all kinds. I also am a instructor at the police academy, a field training officer, and have had different trainings over the years dealing with pressure. I'm also a hostage negotiator with our police department in the county that I live in, along with just, different things that I get to do on a daily basis.
Interesting.
So it's exciting.
Do you have Are there? I mean, are there a lot of hostage negotiations that happen, and how frequent is that?
No,
Does that occur?
I would say like we don't get to do that too much in the county or the town that I live in.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that doesn't happen too often at all. But obviously
Right.
we go through training just to keep everything fresh. The kind of situations we get into. Obviously, there's always some kind of negotiating that you're getting into.
Right.
Pressure situations, on an everyday basis. It's just, different kinds. So.
Just in your day-to-day work, I'm sure you deal with the stress of having to make decisions in a short amount of time with a limited amount of information, and the stress that puts on a person, and how to effectively operate within those parameters. Is there anything you can tell us about the type of training you receive for making decisions on short information and dealing with stressful situations?
Right. I mean, obviously over the years, I go through different kinds of training, whether it be, just how to be professional, at different calls, how to handle, anything from dealing with, a small child who's being, out of control with his mom to, a domestic situation, a husband and wife. And, this could be some of the scarier situations.
Right.
And then you go as far as like bank robberies and any kind of robberies where there's guys with guns involved and stuff. So, dealing with those kind of situations, it can be crazy at times, but obviously if you don't deal with the pressure, correctly, it could affect you, in a wide variety of ways, both making those decisions, as they happen, because everything's very quick. You never know what's going to happen. And that's part of the reason why I enjoy work so much, is because every situation is totally different. Sure, there are going to be situations where you go to, a husband and wife dispute. Well, that's the same kind of situation, but, there are obviously, all kinds of twists, that occur differently with every situation you get into. So, it's you learn every day, you evolve, as a person, at
Right.
work. You learn how to deal with those situations. I mean, obviously I'm a better police officer. I'm a better detective now than I was when I first started the job. So.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like poker, because you can play the same hand with the same cards, involved 15 times, but it's probably never going to play out exactly the same way, or
No. And
your opponent's going to be different.
correct.
Yeah.
And as it pertains, to poker, obviously poker's a hobby for me, but I truly, truly enjoy it. And when it pertains to poker, I want to win all the time, that I go, and play poker, but realize that that's not going to happen. But, depending on the kind of tournament we're playing in, like, we're playing, I mean, all of us, we all met at different WSOPs along with the website. So there's a different amount of pressure, that I feel at different tournaments. Obviously I want to do well at some of the big ones and stuff like that. So, and I apply my own pressure, to myself because I want to do well. So,
Right.
dealing with that.
One of the things that you one of the common occurrences that you mentioned that I thought was very relatable to poker was the phenomenon that you described as tunnel vision when
Right.
entering a situation, which you can describe what tunnel vision is, but I see it very correlated to sort of not evaluating a hand street by street, or taking new information in, or understanding, all the different things that could be happening. Could you describe what you learned about tunnel vision and sort of how it applies to poker?
Right. I think, prior to tunnel vision, I think, you start talking about, you're sitting at a table, you're playing, and this again goes back in your everyday life, and especially me at work. I think ego comes into play. And at times, people get in trouble, their egos come into play much, much more than they should. Now, I realize that I am not a phenomenal top 10 poker player in the world. I'm just an average nit who enjoys playing, and
Wait, was that Derek or P-aire? Who said that?
Welcome to the club.
Hey, but I know how to play. I'm not great by any means. But I do have some skill, and I think my ego, is there. But I don't want to be outdone, or, I don't want to be outdone. I want everybody to think, oh, that guy is pretty good, and as I think we all do. Everybody has an ego. It's just a matter of how much, you're going to show your ego at times.
Right.
And the tunnel vision comes in a little later, where and I have to, I'll bring up an example from work. If I'm at work and, there's a certain amount of pressure that I'm trying to deal with dealing with the situation. If I'm dealing with the individual who's bad-mouthed me and just talking all kinds of trash, is my ego is going to come into play. Like, how much am I going to let this, individual get away with? Well, I have to put my ego aside. And in doing so, I take control of the situation. So no matter what they say or no matter what they do, I am going to have the last action. So knowing that, I basically, am in charge regardless of what they think or they say. So if I know they did something wrong and I have the last action, it really doesn't matter what they say, what they call, names they call me, stuff like that. It sort of is the same way at the poker table, where, if you have, position, whatever, you have your last to act. Again, your ego comes into play, and you're playing a hand. If you think somebody's bluffing you and somebody's going at you like all day, he's basically raising at all your blinds. At some point, your ego is going to come into play, and it's a matter of, putting that aside and, playing the cards you have, playing position and just playing smart at times, and not allowing yourself, to, basically if somebody's trying to clown you or something else like that. And I think about, there are different, obviously, over the years, more and more poker's on TV. So you get to see that at times where guys with huge egos, and obviously, I think we could just, name a whole bunch, from, Phil Hellmuth to Mike the Mouth, and so on and so forth. These guys with huge egos. And at times, when they're playing in these ginormous tournaments, I mean, they even sort of say it themselves where their egos, get the best of them, and because you have all these amateurs going at them, there's a lot of pressure being put on them, and their ego comes into play.
Right.
Now, with that said, tunnel vision at times, can get you in trouble. And, in police work, it can kill you. And, I go to work every day with the possibility of not coming home. So that's already a little bit of pressure as I'm walking out the door, But when it pertains to the poker, and this is something that obviously I still do, and it's something you should try and put aside and control the best you can. Tunnel vision. You're in a big tournament. You think you have the best, like pocket aces. Pocket aces just gets crushed, all the time. At times, I'm my own worst enemy because pocket aces, pocket kings, I'll go all the way, regardless of how coordinated the board is, regardless of the opponent. It doesn't matter. I'm just like full steam ahead. Here's all my chips. Let's play for them.
Because you're not adapting to the new information that's presented at every stage.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And, realizing, that I think if guys, can understand, guys, girls can understand, ego, try and put it aside, and tunnel vision at times, these are things that, obviously, can hurt me in my professional life, but also at the poker table, because I'm trying to survive until we get to the final table, and I'm trying to survive until my hand is the last one that's raised. But at times, if you have tunnel vision in a certain, situation against a certain individual, and you're not really seeing, what you need to see because that board's coordinated, or, he's raising you, telling you on every street, I have a better hand than you. And if you just have, whether it's just ace, king, or it doesn't matter what it is, whatever that hand is, and you're just like, there's no way they're better than me. There's no way, better hand-wise. And if you keep telling yourself that, then you're hurting yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the tunnel vision that I think, happens. It's the same situation at work for me.
Can you give an example of tunnel vision, like how it would affect you as a police officer? Like what is an example of having tunnel vision?
It would be like if we go to a situation and let's say it's like a group of individuals that are in a fight or something, and I'm focused on one individual, and I'm talking to them, and all of a sudden like they say something to provoke me or try and provoke me. And, it gets me. Like, I start listening to them. And, now him or her, the individual, we're going at it verbally. And there are other people around. And me having tunnel vision on that individual, and not realizing the surrounding people, that could possibly hurt me as well, then all of a sudden, they take advantage of that. And obviously over the years, I'm sure there have been different videos of police officers having a little bit of tunnel vision, on the news and, things happening, just individuals just getting hurt in general. And, that's the tunnel vision that I never want to get into, at work.
How do you avoid it? Like, what do you do? Like, is it just a matter of training yourself to recognize the situation? Like, or are there steps that you could take to make sure that you don't close your eyes and don't tunnel through?
It's, I think to a degree the more training and, that you go through, the better off you're going to be realizing situations before they happen. Obviously having partners with you, is always a big thing. You never want to go somewhere by yourself, in police work. It's just, you never want to do that. And I'm lucky to work in a town where, we, almost never go anywhere by ourselves, or at least we never try to. And then more of us are going to show up regardless. So, but tunnel vision at a poker table, again, like, you don't have any partners there with you. And, you have to try and control that. And again, like, I'm preaching this, but, I get in tunnel vision, more than enough at the poker table. And now it's obviously over the years as I've gotten better, it's, I understand more and more and more, because once you bust out of the tournament with that single pocket pair, and you're like, oh my God, how come I didn't see, that on the board? Or, again, the whole texture of the board, there's a straight out there, there's a flush, there's this, there's that. So
we've all had hands, or at least I think we have, where, we go bust or somebody else goes bust, and everybody else at the table knew you were beat, or whoever lost the hand was beat, except the person that was beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's like, oh, it was so obvious they had a monster, or they had the nuts. And,
right.
I found myself. I've definitely found myself in those situations, and I just to put myself in the shoes of someone who would go bust in that situation. It's almost like you don't want, either it's too easy, like you don't want to think critically. It's just easy enough to make a decision pre-flop and just say I'm never folding or whatever. Or you want to believe that you're right, and you don't want to believe that you're lost because you want the stack. Or you just, in a sick way, I don't want to say you want to lose, but in a sick way, you just, giving yourself an excuse when you lose that, hey, I lost with aces or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying that's definitely, something that you're cognizant of when you're thinking of it, but underneath it all, there might be a little bit of that going on where, well, I'm going to give it my best and try to double up with these aces here. And if it doesn't work, well, I busted with aces.
I'll give you a quick example of my little tunnel vision. I'm playing a WPT at the Borgata, a bunch of months ago, and I'm going all day. This one guy, had just been playing at me all day. And not only do I think I got tunnel vision here, I got tunnel vision, my ego everything came into play that I'm talking about. This guy had been playing all day. So we get into a pot. He raises. It comes back to me. I think I'm in the big blind. And I have ace king. Again, we're like level 4, level 5. And I bump it up. And he calls. So we see a flop. And it's like king, rag, rainbow. Just everything I think is in my favor. So I bet out for 4,000. He makes it 12,000. And right there, I should have said, stop, hello, because I still had plenty of chips. I still had like about 15,000 in chips or something. But when he raised it up, I was like, you know what? F this dude. F you. I don't care what you have. Screw you. I don't. Obviously, I didn't even think of the hand, guys. This was just my tunnel vision against
Sounds
this
like
guy who had been playing back at me all day. Now I had taken some, he had taken some, but I was like, you're not going to get this, like, you're not getting me off this hand. Well, you know what? Yeah, he ended up crushing me with pocket aces. We both, like, after I bet the 4, he bets 12K, and I go all in and he calls or whatever we did, and he shows the aces and I'm just like, wow, like, how could I not see that?
Right. What is he doing that with? King Queen is, I don't know the guy. There's definitely, we need more information about him to say, is he doing that with King Queen? But as far as what you're ahead of, what is he doing that with what you're ahead of?
Right.
But that's a great example because he just gave you new information, right? He just told you something by his action. And you discounted, like you found a way to believe what you wanted to believe, which I think a lot of people do.
Absolutely true. And that's why I bring it up. Because again, in this hand alone, my ego came into play where I was like, the heck with this guy, screw him. I didn't even think about he had position on me. The heck with that. The heck with the flop. Obviously I flopped top pair, top kicker. So I'm like, I'm happy about that. But when he crushes, my bet, on the flop, I still bells still didn't go off in my head. I was just like full steam ahead. And, and I busted out of the tournament because again, my ego came into play where I was, this guy had been playing back at me all day, and then tunnel vision, not to see, or realize what was going on in this one hand.
I think what I take away from what you're saying here, is that when you're playing a hand, if you find yourself caught up and not thinking street by street and there's new information, like I'm literally going to be thinking tunnel vision as I'm playing tonight and going through the actions of a hand and saying, do I have tunnel vision here? I think it's a fantastic thing to ask yourself as you go through a hand, and it'll let you, think a little bit, and open up your mind, and say, okay, wait a minute. Am I falling into a pattern here, where I need to think critically? And the term just tunnel vision is a great, memorable term to sort of snap yourself out of that. So I think it's a good point. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about that you brought up earlier was having the last action was interesting. So as a police officer, I guess you could say you always have the last action, right? You're the guy who makes the final decision on what's going to happen in this case, right?
Correct.
And that's interesting. Okay, sorry, go ahead. I'll get to my question after you talk about it a little bit.
I was just going to say, like, when I went through basically like a professionalism class where I taught professionalism. And, obviously I had to, be trained and stuff like that. And, it was an awesome class, but it just taught me that, no matter what individuals say to you, you should always maintain a certain, professionalism. And then obviously they can have the last word because I have the last action. And with that said, regardless of what somebody says, because if it's on a car stop or it's, you're a fucking asshole, shame on you, you gave me a ticket, oh, you're a scumbag, whatever they want to say to me. Okay. Again, they can have the last word because I have the last action. And
Right.
if they were speeding or doing something else that's outrageous, and if I was to give them a summons, again, that's part of the, the last, act. Again, whatever they want to say, why do I want to continue to crank them up? And, again, I can take anybody's liberty whenever I want. And that's just an absolute, horrific thing. At least it would be in my mind. I by no means want to get arrested or, whatever. It's just, it's horrific,
Yeah.
So, again, like, why would I just want to, piss that, law enforcement officer off? And again, because the threat of the last act is always there, no matter how wrong you might be. And you could be absolutely right in the situation that you're dealing with, but if they really want, no matter how unlawful it is, they can arrest you and you've got no say.
Right.
Until obviously the legal system, takes act.
Right.
So if you're an individual out, again, who just does something you think is not wrong, and that police officer tells you you're under arrest, well, then that's the last act.
Yeah.
And
that seems like a really highly correlated concept to just going all in. I mean, not to make it too simplistic, but the threat, if you can establish an image and have people believe that at any time you will use your threat of last action, you could be feared at the table. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I've gotten better over the years with this. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Because obviously, an aggressor at the table, is going to have a decent advantage. But, they always, you always hear position, last act, all this, all that. But that's really, the truth. Because you can apply so much pressure onto somebody. And I'm sure you guys have been in it both, live and online. Just think of that for a minute. It's amazing, especially if you're playing. Now, if you're playing some small sit and go that you're just, you've got no care in the world about, and, you're just wasting time during the day. Well, that's slightly different from playing, the Sunday, Sunday Millions or the Brawl, and, any one of these huge majors. The amount of pressure you're going to feel is always going to be different depending on the situation. When I go play on the weekend in Atlantic City and, I end up doing well, well, then that's nice. That's a good amount of pressure. And, if I win or if I place, but then at the WSOP, which I continue to struggle at, for whatever reason, I just, feel a lot more pressure at those events. It's more prestigious, obviously, and I do want to have good showing, and I don't want to embarrass myself. So then there's more pressure applied than if I was to just go play, in a small tournament on the weekend, which at times I don't feel any pressure.
Right.
So and again, it comes down to you as a person on how you're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And
I just feel like what I'm taking away there is, being the person who has, you don't want to be the person responding to the last action. You want to be the person who has the last action. So don't put yourself in a situation where, you have to make that difficult situation, because that's where all the pressure comes from, is being that person who's responding to the last act. It's obviously not easy to just put your chips in, especially if it's a bluff or whatever, but the pressure of someone who's making the decision is incredible. And being that person who's forced the decision is a better position to be in. And like, I think of specifically like a player like Durr who has that reputation of he will force you all in at any moment, and he doesn't even need, to have the best hand. And that reputation has given him an image where he's feared at the table. And there's a lot of, MTTers, I think, that have the same sort of reputation where they're just not afraid. And because of that image, they're able to do things because they have that last act. And that fear of last act is always there.
I think you can bring up a perfect example, whether it's Durr or any of these other big names or great players, or even some of the beasts that we know from the internet, like Big Dog and Ween and all these other guys. I think regardless, of who you are, if you just apply, pressure at the right time and it's for your tournament life, I mean, even if you think for an instance that you don't have the best hand, that amount of pressure is going to affect you. And if it's for your tournament life or if it's just a huge decision, again, it all comes into play. And, how you deal with that pressure. And we're talking, for the most part, we're talking about just at that moment. Let's say you make the wrong decision, but it's not for your tournament life, but it takes a huge stack, of your chips away from you. Well, now you have to deal with the pressure because now are you going to think about that hand?
Right.
How long are you going to continue to sit there and worry about it, especially if you go card dead for a little bit? How is it going to affect you? And that's also part of it.
Right.
Because if I deal with a situation at work, in an improper manner or, I'm going to relive it in my, wow, I wish I could have done that differently,
Right.
or I wish this, but it's going to be on my mind. And it's the same thing when I'm sitting at the poker table. I guess the best thing, that I could try and say, and I read this in one of the huge, magazines that, poker magazines, that I'm sure most of us read, relatively recently, where they were like, once that last hand, if you just blow that hand, once it's over, it's in the past. You can't go back to it, put it away, and now you have to play the cards, and just deal with your situation the way it is now. And that's true. I had a big hand in the WSOP in the first event, Diego, which we were in just recently, where a guy just made a horrific suck out on me. And I talked to you guys about it too, because I was playing so well and, had a really nice stack. And this one hand beat me up because I had pocket kings and the guy's got like 4-3 of diamonds. And long story short, he just made a horrific calls like the whole way. And mentally I was just like, what is he doing playing that? But what I had to do was I had to just try and tell myself the hand is over. You have plenty of chips still. Let's just move on.
Yep.
But I got to be honest, a little bit of me was still annoyed the rest of the day.
Yeah.
The rest of the day, it affected me. And, that's poker pressure.
What I do with that is I put myself, I mean, it happens to everyone. It's just natural. That's, it's a natural state of being a human when that happens. What I do is I try to put myself in the shoes of us talking about it right now. Because when you talk about it now, hey, this happened 3 weeks ago. And, if I think that I made mistakes later on because I was affected by something that happened that I can't control, in retrospect, it seems like, you're wasting your money, you're lighting your money on fire, you're just completely going about things the wrong way because you still have chips, you're still in the game, and I would regret not righting myself at that moment and realizing all those things. So I literally think about myself talking about this tournament to someone else a week later or 3 days later or telling my wife how the rest of the day went. And if I am and I've done this before, talk about how I kind of just went on tilt and I didn't play well the rest of the day. I'm embarrassed by that, and I feel like I wasted my money and I regret not having the mental fortitude to be able to recover from that. And I find when I think about the future and how I'm going to describe the way the rest of the day went, I recover much quicker because I take myself out of the situation and I remember who I am, where I am, what I could do, and just how to effectively move on from that moment. And that helps me a lot in sort of recovering from the bad beat or the bad moment.
No, I think that's perfect.
Great stuff, P-aire. I mean, really enjoyed talking to you about this. Just the theme of this podcast was the mental game, and just sort of understanding it and your experience dealing with real life issues where you have to, when you make your decisions, some poker decisions are for a lot of money, but most of them are trivial. But the decisions you make in real life are almost never trivial and could lead, there's definite consequences. So understanding how someone who's a professional and deals with that every day deals with those decisions and deals with the stress, I think could help our listeners.
Well, thanks, P-aire. Definitely appreciate it. And like Diego said, we'll take a quick break, and then we will come back here on the Tournament Poker Edge podcast.
All right,
thanks buddy.
Guys.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
shaking cold. These hands are meant to hold. Speak to me. All you gotta keep is strong. Move along, like I know you do. And even when your hope is gone, move along, just to make it through. Move along.
All right, welcome back to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Special thanks to our guests today, Jamie Glazier and P-aire from one of our very own members. So thanks to those guys.
Good choice of bumper music coming back there, Derek. Move along. Pretty much exactly the mindset that Jamie was talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's the soundtrack to the reset button, I think.
Even when your hope is gone, move along. How many times have you felt like your hope is gone playing a tournament?
Per night, at least a dozen times, especially in the last week. So.
Yeah, I know you're running bad. Yeah, that thanks to those guys. That was really interesting. I know we typically do the strategy stuff and we talk more technically about poker. But I think it was a good idea to take a break from that and just kind of talk about that mental game. Jamie said, he said he didn't want to be a douchebag and say 100%, but which I thought was a funny way of putting it. But 80% of the game is mental, and he just might be right, because I talk to so many players who are know the game so well and they're so skilled, and they just can't control their emotion and they don't play their A game enough. And you can learn how to play technically perfect just by studying and following good practice. But that, knowing how to handle a beat and being fearless, and as like we talked about with P-aire of having no fear, knowing that taking that I have the last action, all these things combine to take a player who's good technically and make them a champion. And make them a force at the table, and sticking in that A game will give you more opportunities to win. So, really interesting stuff from those guys.
Yeah, and it makes me realize that poker is kind of a different animal, because like if you, I don't know, say you're a basketball player and you mentally slip for a minute, you miss a free throw or you miss a shot or something, it doesn't really end the game, or maybe even have that dramatic of an impact on the outcome of the game. But in poker, if you slip one time and you make a terrible bluff or shove at the exact wrong time or something, I mean your tournament's over.
Right. Right.
And there's no way to recover from it. You can't be like, well, I'll just I'll steal the ball and score 2 more points next time.
I remember talking to Hagbard about this once before. Where you and I came from another forum. That's where we first became friends, poker friends, and there was a post about emotion and not tilting, and he was so just his point on this was so eloquent and simple. He's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you lighting money on fire? You might as well just light your money on fire if you're going to tilt off the rest of your tournaments. Because someone actually talked about, I think I tilted so hard that I just shoved everywhere else. And how could you win? How could you be in the long term successful? And it's completely unprofessional if you're pursuing poker seriously. If you were, a trader and you made a bad trade, are you then going to go and just sell everything off?
Right.
I mean, are you just going to go dump everything? I mean,
yeah. Only in poker would you just decide, okay, I'm just all in everywhere, and I hope I bust soon so I can go, do something different today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game of the long term. It's a game of many situations and constantly making the best decision possible and coming out ahead in the long term. And you have to keep your own tainting of your situation to a minimum.
Right.
I kind of took 4 things from these conversations we had today, starting with Jamie. That whole thing about the happy place. Just being able to mentally reset your mind by thinking about something that makes you happy or something that you did well in the past, and that taking and turning those biologically changing your body state to one where you're in a better frame of mind. I thought that was interesting. Really interesting and important and a good lesson from Jamie. And then the positive, the positive recycling bin and focusing on what you did well in a session. I have an example of that, which I was just thinking about on break, where it just happened the other night in the FTP 28K. I had 60 big blinds, and we were at not 60. I guess I had like 48 big blinds or whatever. But we were at 600, 1200, and I had 60K, and I had two aggressive guys at my table. I was in the button, and one guy opens, and the guy next to him flats. Opens 2400. The guy to immediately to his left flats, and I'm on the button. Just two positions later, and I have 8-6 off. Which is obviously nothing, but we're all deep enough. Everyone here has at least 40 big blinds that I just throw in a light 4-bet, right? Mm-hmm. And then I get myself put in a bad situation because the big blind, who has, I think, about 25K. So I 3-bet to, I'm sorry, it was a 3-bet, but it was a pretty big one. And I make it 9K, and I brought his hand up to Casey, and we talked about it. He says he thought it was a little big, and then I told him, in this tournament, because I know he doesn't play this tournament, I think you get flatted too often. Right. And so I wanted to make it a little bigger. And he's like, okay, that makes sense. But then the big blind makes it. He has 25K, and he makes it 16K, and he leaves himself 8. Whatever it was, he left himself about 8K behind. So maybe he made it like 17. But obviously, a really weird small bet, and on the spot, I was trying to do the math. Couldn't really get the math down. It was just too hard with what he had in, what I had to put in to match, then what would be going after that. But intuitively, I felt like it was very close. Yeah. And, after doing the math, actually, if, we put him on a range of like 10s or better, or jacks or better, ace king or better, depending if you add ace queen, depending if you add 10s, but I got about a 26%, equity versus range, and it turns out I'm putting in 27% more of the pot. If I just shoved and he called, which he would, I'd be putting in 27% to win, the full pot. So right. it was mathematically as close as it felt, and I time banked on this, and it just felt real dirty folding there, but I did anyway. And I brought it to Casey, and I said, Casey, what'd you do here? And he says, you know what? You had too many chips in there. He goes, I feel like it's close, but I don't think I'm ever folding there. I think, the amount of the time that it's ace king, you have decent odds. And then if you don't, you don't. But he said he felt like money-wise it was enough money to make the call, and he felt pretty confident about that. Yeah. And so at first I thought, man, I made a mistake. I really should be doing better than this. But, when we were talking about it, Casey thought that he felt that the initial 3-bet was just a great spot. He just thought that he thought my game had improved a lot, just seeing me do things like that. So I decided the rest of the day, even before we even talked to Jamie here, decided that I'm going to focus on what I did right there. Finding that opportunity, that spot that I might have missed in the past because of the profiles of the players who just were in the hand was a good opportunity. And both of those guys folded. So if this guy behind me didn't open up with a hand, it would have been a great spot to steal. Relatively light. So to Jamie's point, sort of anchoring yourself to something, thinking about what you did right. Forget about that I folded incorrectly, but the fact that I found a spot that I would have missed in the past is something that I'm taking as a positive, and I'm going to think about and carry that over into my next session. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So that's the second thing I found. And then with P-aire, this concept of tunnel vision I thought was really interesting. Just, trying to keep yourself, aware at every street of what's happening and not locking yourself into a line and a decision mode and not being able to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And then that sort of applying the pressure with being the person that has the last action. Pretty interesting. Right. So those are 4 concepts I'll take away from today. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, it definitely was. I think one thing that I really found interesting in talking to Jamie, and it's something I'm going to get on his site and dig deeper into, is that sort of pregame routine, and sort of setting your mind up to face these sort of challenges, like that we've talked about in terms of bad beats or making a bad play at a bad time or right. Whatever the situation might be. But I think there's a lot to be gained from
putting yourself in the right mental state before you even sit down to play.
Yep.
How many times have you started a session or somebody said they started a session and they didn't really feel like playing that day, or
Right.
they, had some other things going on in their life or whatever. And I think, and if you play for a living, sometimes you're not going to want to play, but you might still have to. But I think there's probably things that we as tournament players can do to get ourselves in the right state of mind to play our best. So
Yep.
I really want to look into that pregame ritual and see if there's some things to gain there. And then, I thought P-aire's concept of tunnel vision was really interesting too. I think it's definitely something that happens to me sometimes. You start playing a hand and you've just sort of decided what you're going to do before,
Right.
And we talked a lot about having a plan, and I think a plan is important, but you should be willing to adapt your plan based on, I think you talked about getting new information.
Yep.
And that's one thing about poker is with, the various streets that we see, we get new information, and different bet sizing and timing and things like that. And you have to take that information into account and adjust your plan accordingly. So
Absolutely.
I think that just involves a little more focus and reminding yourself. And it was funny because both guys mentioned having sticky notes on their monitors. And as silly as it sounds, I think I'm going to put a few sticky notes on my monitor.
There you go.
I'm not sure what they're going to say yet, but I'm going to find something. So.
Yep. Not a bad idea.
Yeah, it was definitely a really interesting conversation with both those guys today. So definitely appreciate them coming in.
Cool. Yep. Thanks to those guys for coming by. We really appreciate talking a little bit about the mental side for a while. So.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Tournament Poker Edge this week.
Yeah. So a couple things, right? From a video perspective, some cool videos up right now. There is currently a Big Dog series running. During Double Guarantee Week, he did a live sweat, which his live sweats are pretty epic. And this one is no different. It's a 6-parter. I've watched the first 4 parts, and I got to tell you, I feel like watching this video helped me win that tournament Friday night. I don't know. There's something about when I watch a Big Dog video that, going back to mental state, it just puts me in the right mind state of fearlessness and thinking about, he takes so many lines where he does things, he'll see more streets than a lot of other pros I've seen. He'll take more chances than a lot of the pros I've seen, and just, seeing him be successful with it has inspired me to do a lot more different things at the table, and I feel like it really helped me. So this is a good series. Anyone who is on the site that hasn't started watching yet, I definitely recommend it. There's a pretty cool series going on that just wrapped up where, I know we're going to talk about the league cycle 2 that just started, but, the first tournament of the TPE league, just concluded, and TMCK21 won the tournament, and Ween did his review of his hand history. So that was pretty cool, and that's going on right now. And then upcoming we have Hit the Panda did a Sunday sweat just this Sunday, and that'll be going up next. So
nice
videos out there.
Yeah, I know different people have different preferences, but I love me some live sweats. So a Big Dog and a Hit the Panda live sweat all within a couple weeks of each other makes me a very happy poker player.
Yeah,
so.
and we also have we're doing another Sunday Million Final Table replay review. Ween and I just recorded, so that should be fun too, because the first one got a lot of really positive response. Pretty cool concept, I think, and people seem to like it. So we just did another one, and that'll be coming up shortly too.
Cool. You mentioned being inspired by Big Dog, and I think a lot of people were inspired by his article this week, which just went up on the site, called Killer Instinct, and I think he does a pretty good job of capturing the mindset that you need to win tournaments, not just go deep in them or just finish 7th or 8th or something. He really talked about the idea of going for the win and not just moving up the pay ladder. And members have loved that article, so I encourage people to go over and check that out.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're good, you're going to finish 8th or 9th a lot, right? So whatever. If it happens again, it happens. Go for the win, because those top 3s
are where you're going to make all your money. And that's kind of, I just summarized his article, and he wrote it better than I described it, but that's what he's getting at. And the way he describes it from his mind is really eloquent. So, that's sort of paraphrasing what he talked about there, but he's so right.
Well, and there's really not much difference between finishing like 12th or 13th and finishing 8th or 9th, money-wise. So you might as well put yourself in a position to win it.
Yeah, but the point he makes too is that, if you play to where you don't give yourself a chance to win, you might move up to 4th or 5th a lot, or even 3rd, but you're never going to give yourself a chance to take first, because you're just not going to get aces enough. You're not going to get kings enough. Things aren't going to go your way from a pre-flop perspective all the time. So you have to put pressure, you have to take chances, you have to win flips, you have to come from behind. Because if you do that enough, finishing 4th or 5th 6 times is nowhere near as good as finishing 9th 5 times at first once.
Right.
So that's kind of what he was getting at. Definitely an eye-opener.
So I know you mentioned the Tournament Poker Edge League, but I do want to make special mention of that. If you're a TPE member and you haven't gotten in on the league yet, make sure you do so. Really good turnout so far. We've had good numbers. We've had a number of the pros playing in some of the events, so it's been really cool. You mentioned TMCK21 and his hand history review from the first win. We're still pretty early in the cycle, so he is currently our top leader, but he's followed up by Deal Straight and Hawkeye K9, who are coming up on his tail, trying to take over the lead. And I think I mentioned last podcast that we did add a little bit of cold hard cash to the prize pool, so make sure you get in and give yourself a chance to win some of that. If you want to make it really easy on yourself, you can go over to Tournament Poker Edge and check on the forums for information on the league, or you can just go to tpe.mttleague.com, and it has all the information, the schedule, the rankings, and one thing that's great about that site is that you can literally click on the PokerStars icon and it will open up PokerStars and open up the window to register for the next tournament. So it sort of automates the process for you. You don't have to go digging through the private tournament tab trying to find it. So,
and it deals you aces and puts you all in too, right?
If it does, then I'm using it more often. Also, just wanted to mention we announced the Tournament Poker Edge Bootcamp last week. So I want to, tell people to head over to the forums and check all the information out on that. It's going to be June 10th in Las Vegas. The exact location is to be determined, but it will either be at our house in Vegas or at an off-site location. Kind of just depends on how many people we end up having.
Yeah.
And we'll work out some of those logistics, but it will be on June 10th. So you can check out the forum for information on the agenda. And cost and a few other things like that, but I think it's going to be a really cool event.
Yeah, I can't wait to just spend a full day talking poker with these guys, the pros and the members, and just kind of going through a lot of the things we talk about on the site and in this podcast, but face to face and in person, which is a great way to learn.
Yep, and a lot more depth. And various coaches charge various things, but to get 5 or 6 really top-notch pros to talk to you about poker for 7, 8, 9 hours, whatever it ends up being.
Ridiculous value.
It's well worth the money. Yep. And on a related note, there is a $1,500 event at the World Series the next day, and there's also a $340 Venetian Deep Stack event the next day. So
and there's a $1,000 on Sunday, right?
Yep, I believe you're right.
Yeah, we kind of did that on purpose so that if you do come in for this, you can roll right into a couple of affordable bracelet events, sorry.
Yeah. So make a trip of it, come out, attend the boot camp, and then we'll all go play some poker together.
Yep. And speaking of rings, a bunch of TPE members are planning to get together for the World Series of Poker Circuit event in Chester, PA. It's Chester, I think, right? Yeah, in late April. So we'll obviously have more podcasts before then, and we'll give you guys more details on what's going on there. But just like we did in Atlantic City, there'll be, probably a bunch of people meeting up and just getting together at the tournament.
Cool. Right on. Well, I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. And once again, thanks to Jamie and P-aire for coming in.
Yep.
Especially, I know Jamie was on vacation, obviously, so we appreciate him taking some time out to talk to us. So.
Yep. All right. Good luck, KB. Take down the mini F-tops.
Thanks. I'll definitely try. You too.
All right.
And we will see you all next time on the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. See ya.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Log in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Carry mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Carry mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun.